Okay, students, this is the third attempt at me doing this video. It keeps on going wrong. I keep on making double entendres and euphemisms that make me laugh in this poem. I'm trying really, really hard not to make it rude when I'm talking about the poem, but it's really, really hard not to. I don't know what's happened to me, what's gone to me today. So answers on a postcard, please. Send them in. Can you guess what it was that Phil Sand found so funny in this poem that meant he had to stop and laugh for 5 minutes twice when he was reading the poem? So I've already written some stuff. This is The Sun Rising by Donne. It isn't rude, and I'm not going to present any ideas that it is. It's just about the sun. So, it's like many Donne poems, 3 stanzas. However, some of the things I've written already, we have an irregular meter. So all I mean by that is like the pattern of stresses on the syllables and the length of the lines and things like that is not regular. Some of them are short, some of them are long, and they don't tend to sort of map quite easily. So it's certainly not melodic in the sense that we have sort of commas in different places, and there's not necessarily a sense of a very, very defined rhythm. However, the line rhyme scheme, the sort of structure of the rhyming patterns in the lines, in the end stops of the end of those lines, is uniform, is regular. Okay, so what we've got is A, B, B, A, so a quatrain with the second and third and first and fourth lines rhyming, but we've then got C, D, C, D, a quatrain where the first and third and second and fourth lines rhyme, and then we have a couplet rounding it off, and it's the same in each stanza. So even though we have an irregular meter, an irregular line length, we have a regular or uniform rhyming scheme, and within that rhyme scheme we have a quatrain that's one way, a quatrain that's a different way, and then a couplet bringing those together. And in a poem that is about 2 people being in love, that works quite nicely. We have one quatrain and a different quatrain, and then they are brought together with a couplet at the end, and there's nothing in that I could find rude. So, let's on to the poem itself. It's directed towards the sun, so you could say that's a personification, but really anybody could say that doing, the card all grown, that's personification, isn't it? What we often use for sort of the bigger sense of a creation of a character in that way out of something inanimate would be anthropomorphic, or an anthropomorphic projection, or something like that. The sun becomes a person, an anthropomorphism, a sort of a person in that way. Okay, so we've got, you could say personification if you don't want to use the word anthropomorphism, that's fine, but it's another way of putting its bigger version of personification, really. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got. 3 stanzas, irregular meter, regular uniform rhyme scheme, the sun is personified, the sun is the recipient. Okay, so we've seen the passive female recipient before in other Donne poems, but now the sun is the recipient of him sort of speaking to it, really. Okay. Busy old fool, unruly sun, why dost thou thus, through windows and through curtains, call on us? Must to thy motions lovers' seasons run? So like with a lot of Donne poetry, we've got the rhetorical interrogatives, we've got this sort of questioning. I'm not sure it is rhetorical, really. I suppose if it's for an effect, it's rhetorical, but it's just possibly just raising some questions, isn't it? There's questioning throughout the poem, references to the recipient, which is the sun, asking questions of it. And there's a contrast between the sun, which is seen as busy and old and a fool, and to the lovers. So there's this question of why must lovers sort of run to your seasons? Why must you be in charge? To the sun. Saucy pedantic wretch, go chide late schoolboys and sow apprentices, go tell court huntsmen that the king will ride, call country ants to harvest offices. So there's a really sort of pejorative language, a sort of insulting language towards the sun. Now that could be one of the stylistic features of metaphysical poetry that we've seen before, which is this sort of ironic tone, the conversational quality, not really meaning it. But it's certainly very strong. It's almost hyperbolic in its tone. I can't spell the word hyperbole. There's a sense of hyperbole. It's over the top, it's OTT, and it's pejorative attack on the sun. He's busy, he's a fool, he's a saucy pedantic wretch. And he's sort of saying that, the sun, as a metaphor for the seasons and for nature and for the movements of time, that's for other people. It's not for lovers, me and my lover together. Love all alike, no season knows, nor clime, nor hours, days, months, which are the rags of time. So love as eternal. We've seen this concept before in John Donne poems, the idea of love as eternal and transcendent, that sort of small r romantic sense, transcendent, of love as eternal, everlasting, a metaphysical property. Whereas he's saying it's even more important than, say, time, hours, days, months, which are the rags of time, almost like, time itself is less significant. Love are like no season knows. Love is forever. And if we look at the things that he's saying that love is more important than, the sun itself and its movement and nature in that sense, schoolboys and so apprentices, it's saying like, getting up in the morning, that's for children, but also court huntsman and the king will ride, the sense of the social hierarchy, the whole system of government that he lives in is not as important as him in this room with his lover right now. And this goes back to what we call the Aubade, I don't actually know how to pronounce it, the Aubade or the Aubade, which is a type of medieval tradition, medieval poem. And the setting of it is often two lovers waking up in the morning together, and the tension of needing to run away because, maybe her dad's hammering on the door or whatever, and the desire to be together. So he takes that convention of the Aubade and really focuses on it and makes this moment seem the most significant thing in the universe. And we've seen this before with Donne, taking existing conventions like the medieval convention or the earlier Renaissance convention of the flea as an image of as a sort of metaphor for sexual desire, and then making it bigger, making a sort of a bigger metaphysical conceit out of that. Okay. Thy beams, the sun's beams, so reverend and strong, why shouldst thou think? Why do you think you're so big and clever? I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink. Now, one of the ideas here is this sort of humanism or a human-centered universe, that he feels more powerful than the sun. I can eclipse, and the word eclipse, of course, in the sense of the sort of understanding of the universe, understanding of the solar system. I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink, but that I would not lose her sight so long. So the introduction of the other character in the poem, the woman who he's with at this moment, occurs in the second stanza here. Whereas it's quite general here, there's a specific, her sight. It's like in this present moment that's lasting forever, he's with somebody and he's saying, I could actually be more powerful than you, the sun. I could close my eyes and you'd disappear, but I wouldn't want to lose her sight. So weirdly for Donne, there's sort of an empowerment of the female form here. Women aren't, some object of ridicule as they are in other poems, or of sexual desire in other poems. They're sort of this eternal beauty. And it goes even further. Where are we? I would not lose her sight so long if her eyes have not blinded thine. Look and tomorrow tell me whether both the Indias of spice and mine be where thou left'st them, or lie here with me. So her eyes have not blinded thine. Like, there's a possibility that her eyes are going to blind the sun, whereas the opposite would be the case in reality. The Indias, so the Indies or the Indias, is a word used in the Renaissance for basically anywhere sort of foreign and exotic. So that's why we have, say, the West Indies and the East Indies and the Indus and all the rest of it. It's got connotations of richness and exoticism and mysticism, spices and gold mines. Beware thou left'st them, or lie here with me. So there's this sense of idolization of the female body here, or of this specific love of him, that she's worth more than all the spice and all the gold in India. Ask, be thou the last time I lie here with me, ask for those kings whom thou sawest yesterday, and thou shalt hear all here in one bed lay. So the sense of unity and the sense that the idolization of an idealization of the woman that he's in, this is sort of a centering of the universe on this moment in this room. She's all states and all princes eyne, but possibly the most important line in the poem. Look how short it is, how an abrupt line it is. Nothing else is. Nothing else is. That's even bigger than nothing else matters. It's saying nothing else exists other than this moment of me and my loved one. I mean, it's such an extraordinarily big statement for something that starts as sort of pejorative and conversational. Nothing else exists other than love. And perhaps, as a sort of more modern Christian conception that's perhaps emerging at this moment, the idea that the universe itself is a gift of love, that, that the universe, a force of it is with love, God's love and grace created the universe. These ideas do exist within the Renaissance. It's not all God's wrath and fire and brimstone and things like that. So this idea that love is the nature of the universe is It comes through in this stanza. Princes do but play us, compared to this, all honours mimic, all wealth alchemy. So it's a really strong political statement, really, that all honours, like all duties, laws, and duty towards your lord and the king, all wealth, all of the monetary system, all of this is just mimicry. It's a pale shadow. It's alchemy. It's, it's pretend chemistry compared to truth and unity and the eternal nature of love. Thou, son, art half as happy as we, in that the world's contracted thus. So in the sense that humanist sense of their love is the central nature of the universe, that's one way, but also building on this sort of quite new, modern Christian idea, which is really taken off today, this idea that the universe itself is a gift of love from God, or that the universe is contracted, it's made of love. I mean, contracted can mean like a contract, it's been made in this way, or literally it could mean like sort of shortened down in that way. Either way, it works in the sense that this moment of love, this eternal moment of love, is all that matters in the universe and all that exists, really, in the universe. Thine age asks ease, and since thy duties be to warm the world, that's done in warming us. So it really disempowers the sun and places humanity and human love and human connection, the eternal nature of human love, at the centre of the universe. To warm the world, that's done in warming us. Shine here to us, and thou art everywhere. This bed thy centre is, these walls thy sphere. So we return almost again this slightly ironic and yet deeply meaningful tone towards the end. We read this in context. At this point in history, there's a really big debate about whether the Earth is the centre of the universe, the centre of the world. Let's start again. The Earth is the centre of the solar system, or the Sun is at the centre of the solar system. So this idea of the sort of emerging science of Galileo, building on Copernicus's understanding that actually the science is beginning to show that the Earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around, and the church and basically all religious institutions saying, well, look at Genesis, look at the Bible. Clearly, it demonstrates that the Earth is central. So there's this big debate that's going on. Galileo famously threatened with torture unless he recants, his finding that actually the Earth goes around the sun, which it does, by the way. You definitely know that. I know you know that. It's not a matter of opinion, is it? It's true. It's just a fact. So I don't know. At some point we're gonna get onto the flat earthers. Goodness me. But this is a debate that's happening at the time. It's likely that most educated people would have realised that Galileo's onto something. It really is the case that the Earth is going around the sun. But he's saying it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's sort of interesting humanist perspective here is that this sort of almost ironic tone, this bed thy centre is, these walls thy sphere. He's saying, well, you might go around the Earth, the sun, but really what matters is that the centre of the Earth is this room, the centre of the universe is this room right now. So perhaps, again, this return to this almost jokey tone, but dealing with something huge, which is really this claim that human love is the centre and the nature and the fundamental bedrock of reality. I mean, what a claim. Nothing else is. All there is this moment. All the rest is me and my loved one. So building on, sort of the medieval Aubade and a current debate about whether the Earth or the sun is the centre of the universe, he manages to have this really consistent poem which from top to bottom basically says human life comes first, human love comes first. So a real sort of humanist poem here. Unlike a lot of the three stanza Donne poems or the longer Donne poems, there isn't an argument structure in the sense of it changing or having that sort of little volta or the little change. It's essentially building up the same idea. The sun's lacking in power, the sun's not as powerful as my loved one, she's idealised, and then the centre of the universe is human love and human connection. So building that conceit all right the way throughout. I mean, I think it's brilliant. I really do. I think it's an amazing poem to maintain that and to be so, sort of approachable again in language, and yet to raise such massive metaphysical ideas about, you know, the status of humankind within the cosmos in a time of great change. I think it's a fascinating poem, really. I really hope you like this one, and I cannot believe that this is the guy who wrote Song, Go and Catch a Falling Star. It's extraordinary, you know, that he manages to do this and then makes a silly poem saying, oh, women are bad. Right, read this several times and think about it and just enjoy it, and, you know, just love the poems and try them, and, you know, even if you don't like them, just pretend and make me happy. Okay, thanks very much.